meeting of December the 19th to order. And we have two items on our agenda, one being the bylaw 1716 utility rate for second and third reading. Council has requested and received some additional information. Did you want to speak on that, Ray?
The one question that was raised at the last meeting was in regard to reducing the rates from 5% to 3%, how much that would impact on the contribution to reserves. And Barb has met with Bob Jenkins, who does our rate model. We're estimating that it would be a reduction of somewhere between $45,000 and $50,000. And then there were a number of questions raised relating to the impact on rates when they drop from 5 to 3 for individual households or service connections. And I believe that information, Barb, you've got in front of you.
Thank you. So the rate between, we used a 20 cubic meter average per household, and at 3%, it would increase the monthly bill $2.03, and at 5%, it would increase the monthly bill to by $3.16. So on an annual basis, 5% is $37.88 increase for the year, and 3% is a $24.35.
Okay.
Maybe just go through the wastewater and then did you mention wastewater already? Okay, that was the combined one?
Sorry, yeah, that was combined 20 cubic meters.
Okay, fair enough.
So 316 is a total
Per month.
Yes.
per month.
Yes.
Thank you.
Does that include the increase on the administration fee as well? Okay.
Yes.
So we've had first reading of this bylaw. Jay? No? We've had first reading of this bylaw. Is there any other questions or anything? I'll ask for a motion for second reading. Cheryl? And a seconder? Lisa? Comments? Jay?
Thank you, Worship. I'll say at the outset that I'm opposed to this motion, and I would prefer, in fact, to see the previous draft of the bylaw reinstated. I don't want to pay more. You don't want to pay more. No one wants to pay more. But we were elected to lead, and up until this point, that's what we've been doing. We have been on a total recovery journey for almost 10 years. Tom, Cheryl, and Lisa and I, for the entire time we've served together, we acknowledged that the previous system had flaws. And those flaws were that it was unfair because we had people who could not connect to the utility, subsidizing it with their taxes. That's not fair. We had large users of the commodity. We had commercial users of the commodity who profit from the commodity, not paying their fair share for the treatment of the water and the distribution of the water and the wastewater. And so instead, we decided to move towards a system that increased the fairness and, more importantly, spoke to the long-term sustainability of that utility. And I think the measured approach that we've been taking each year to move the system towards more fairness and towards sustainability has insulated this community from the overall massive sticker shock that would have occurred if the whole increase that was necessary happened all in one year. You'll recall that we've looked at this each and every year, and each and every year we've made a commitment to that plan. Keep in mind that we're not just customers of this, we are all owners of this utility. And as owners, we have a duty to make sure that the system continues to move towards fairness and that it is sustainable for future generations. Dropping the increase by a token amount delays that plan with no actual benefit. And I mean token. The annual savings to our average customer is less than $14 a year. $14 a year. That amount has no real impact in the lives of the ratepayers we represent, but it does signal that our commitment to fairness and our commitment to sustainability is potentially tossed aside when there's an election less than 12 months away, in order to make sure that it looks like we're doing something. If as a council you want to seriously address how the economic times we find ourselves mired in are affecting our community, let's do that. Let's talk about significant tax reduction and fee reduction and the severe impacts on service and the job losses that would inevitably follow. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about redirecting massive amounts of money to economic development to create programs that could try to attract jobs to the valley, if that's what we think our role is, and then how to pay for something like that. Let's have those real conversations, and that should be happening in our budget deliberations. And I haven't heard any outcry from the rest of you at those meetings that that's the conversation we want to have. So please, let's not pretend that saving the average consumer $14 on their water bill is helping in any real way. It's not. It is cynical pandering. So instead, I'd rather make an amendment to reinstate the 5% and 3% that we saw in the original. That was our plan. That should be our commitment.
Thank you. We have a motion right now. We can address that. The motion has been seconded. Anyone else would like to speak before we vote? Cheryl?
I understand your opinion, Jay, and I appreciate that. I always have respect for it. But there are people out there, maybe $14 doesn't mean a lot to you, and it's not because it's an election year. It has nothing to do with election year. I think that on a lot of our fees and things we're doing here, we need to look at and have the discussion that we either keep the same rate, even if it's for 1 year, till we see what's happening with the people out there, how things are going to be affected by the carbon tax, by other things that are happening. I understand where you're coming from, and as far as I'm concerned, it has nothing to do with the election year. So if that's where you think it's coming from, it is not. People just don't have the money. Maybe to you, $14 is nothing, but I think it's the idea that people realize we're looking at them. We're looking at them as a group, and there's residents out there that are having a hard time, and that's just a signal that we know they are. And perhaps if we do it for 1 year, fine. I'm not saying we do it forever. I'm saying we look at it year after year. And does that mean that I am not wanting cost recovery? Absolutely not. That's not the point. The point is there are people out there that need help. And if we can do a little bit with user fees, with taxes, with water rates, we can't just keep raising and raising. I understand where we're at. I get that. But I think we need to look at, even if it's for 1 year, we need to look at where we're at.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just quickly, you had said $40,000 to $50,000 would be additional towards. Can we say, using the schedule that we have been using, how many more years or months that adds on until we get to a full cost recovery?
I think the numbers presented by Mr. Jenkins were that on the water end, we were hoping to be fully supported by 2020, and reducing it from 5% to 3%. He suggested would add another 2 years onto that, if we continued at the 5% per year. Yes. 2022.
And with the 3% increase, does that still cover our day to day? It just doesn't touch our amortization or our accumulated surplus. Like, does it cover? It does. Okay, but it puts us behind. Yeah, that's for our reserves, and it puts it off for another 2 years. I think we're working against ourselves by doing that.
Lisa?
So as much as it may kill me, Cheryl, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I see firsthand from many Drumhellerites how they're suffering, and I realize that $2 or $3 a month seems nominal, but I know people who've had their water disconnected for less. I think that, we still have an increase that we're tacking on to the water bill. So, I mean, we're going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but eventually we're going to be going the 2 steps and 2 steps and 2 steps. And it's still moving forward. It's not necessarily going as fast as some of us would like. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there in our community that are suffering. And you know what, Jay, I fully agree with you, the fact that, we need to be good stewards, but also we're not only just stewards for this community, but we're stewards for the people that we represent too. And that's where I stand. Oh,
Pardon me?
my apologies.
Yes, that's true. But yes, you can address it. Thank you.
So my argument again, and I want to make it absolutely clear, we're not talking about me. We're not talking about you or you. We're talking about the community. And $1.17 a month is not real helping. It's a token. It is passing the buck to the next council to then pick up the torch that we have dropped and do the right thing when perhaps economic conditions are no better than they are today or worse. $1.17 is not helping anyone. If that figure was significant to enough of our community, then the problems are so deep that we ought to be talking instead about expanding our social service delivery to this community by a factor of 10. And we're not having that conversation. We're not having any of those conversations yet. Instead, when we went through the budget, we were nipping here and tucking there. But there was no overall outcry that the public must be protected from increases of a real magnitude when it relates to things like property taxes. That hasn't come up yet. So instead, I argue that this community does not need us to make token gestures. I'm not arguing that people are hurting. I agree wholeheartedly. But as it relates to this utility, all it does instead is say that when things get tough, we're going to abandon a decade-long commitment to making sure that the people who use the most pay the most. I cannot see that $1.17, making that go away, is doing our job.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate where Councillor Garbutt is coming from. And I guess I'm okay with this because I see it as a little bit of a relaxation. I realize it's a token. I realize it's not going to affect anybody significantly. But I think to me, it's like giving people a little bit of an opportunity to take a breath. That they are pushed from so many different directions these days. For us to even make a token like this, I think is a good thing, and that it will be appreciated by people, even though it isn't financially lucrative to them necessarily. I think they will appreciate just a slight relaxation, an opportunity for them to have a little bit of a token from us.
Anyone else? Okay. We have a motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's defeated. No, there was no amendment. I said that we already had the motion. The motion was made and seconded. We'd have to deal with the amendment after. All votes are recorded.
Is that motion on the amendment or the?
Negative. No, it was on the original motion of
Do
the
you
three.
need to vote on the amendment to the motion
There has
first?
been no amendment offered.
I didn't accept the amendment because we already had a motion. So we ought to deal with the motion first, then we can deal with an amendment.
That's contrary to procedure. Sorry, you have to deal with the amendment to the motion first. That takes precedent.
There was no amendment made.
I didn't make an amendment.
Did you not have a mover and a seconder to that?
Negative.
No.
There was no amendment made.
We had first and seconders to second reading, and then discussion. There was no amendment offered during the discussion.
Okay. So you recorded the vote as? Okay.
Your Worship, I'd like to move that the utility rate bylaw be amended to reflect a 5% increase for water and a 3% increase for wastewater.
Thank you. A seconder? Tara?
I could just interject here. I'm not sure that once the motion is defeated without an amendment, that bylaw is done. That's, if there's an amendment, it has to get on the table before the vote is taken on that.
My vote would have been for, had I known what we were voting on. I guess that was my mistake.
This was my mistake. I didn't understand.
I'm totally comfortable, as I think everybody else be, with a do-over. What is the mechanism by which we can?
If
Because we actually had an
If there was a
abstention, which is also not allowed.
So if you, the bylaw that's here, if you vote on second reading to it and it gets defeated, then the bylaw is defeated. You have
Okay.
to start the process all
Okay.
over again.
okay,
If there's
I'm
an
gonna
amendment
accept.
that's proposed to be introduced, then it has to be to amend it, and then
Okay.
if that passes, then you have to vote on the amended.
Okay. We can quash that vote then, and I'll accept Jay's
I'm making an
amendment, and it'll
That
read
the rates be changed back to 5 and 3.
5 and 3.
5 and 2.
5 and 2. Sorry, 5 and 2.
2. Yeah.
5 and 2. And that was seconded by Tara. Okay. Comments or discussion on the amendment?
Could I just hear the motion to make sure I know what's happening, please?
Motion by Jay, second by Tara, to reinstate the previous bylaw at 5% for increased water, 2% increased wastewater.
Got it? Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. So now we can move to
Second reading as amended.
second reading as amended.
Also move.
With the seconder? Pat? Okay. Comments, questions? Sorry about this. All in favor? Opposed? Approved. And now third reading?
Also move, Your Worship.
Thank you. And seconder? Tara? Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Sorry about the confusion. And now we can deal with the 2017 service fee schedule. This is Paul
Okay,
and Ray.
actually, we're going to turn this over to Barb.
Okay,
And
or
she,
Barb.
She can start the review. We're going to have each department provide overviews of what they're looking at doing within recreation, BCF, airports, etc. So, and when it comes to the safety codes end of things, I'll offer some comments along with Paul.
And let's have comments as we go along, please, instead of waiting till the very end. Let's do them when they're relevant, when we're discussing the issue that you have.
Barbara's done all the inputting on this, so if you wouldn't mind, just sort of walk us through it in terms of where things are at, and we'll get each department to comment on what their input's been.
Sure, thank you. So just as you'll see a common theme throughout all the pages, the columns, you should see a 0% increase, a 2%, and a 5%. And for each of the categories, the proposed rate increase, if any, is highlighted in blue. So for the very first one, the ones that come out of corporate services, all of our area, we're recommending a 0% increase to the fees that we charge within our department, with the exception of the custom work. There is a slight increase there. I think actually it worked out to about 5%. It's mostly related to the wages, so the true cost of providing the service. Otherwise, all the other rates in our department we recommend to keep at 0. That's the first 4 pages, I think.
Jay, go ahead.
Barb, is this where we would speak to the fee or fine charged for late property taxes? Is that in those first 4 pages?
No,
Where's-
that's not. That would be in the property tax bylaw.
Oh, it's not on here.
No.
It's not on the schedule.
Okay. When we get there, I think we need to talk about a sliding scale.
And just quickly, the budget that we worked on, the assumptions in it are based on what you have highlighted?
The budget was built on a 2% increase.
Not on your
Overall.
recommendations.
No, and so if we go under, like for us, we're going to be okay in corporate services at a 0 there.
Okay.
Sorry, moving on to the airport actually is the next function, which right now we've recommended to increase the rates to $2.25. And if Daryl wants to speak to that some, please.
So I think we've heard, at least I've heard sitting here, that our rates are fairly low at the airport. We're also a bit cash strapped at the airport to do improvements because we don't charge enough. So we did a survey of about 8 or 9 airports near us, all similar sizes to ours. And the lowest rate that was charged by anybody is ours at $175. The next lowest was $220 at Brooks. That was for residential planes. $386 at Bicycle. We're up to $587 and $600 at Camrose and Springbank, respectively. So we think that this is a reasonable increase, certainly more than 2% or 5%. But we think that we haven't raised this rate for a number of years, and it's certainly something that's hurting us in effort to become more sustainable out there. So.
Okay, moving on then. The next one is animal licensing, animal control. And again, we just recommended a 0% increase in the fees for animal control. If you want to speak at all to that. Then moving on to the Aquaplex, the fees there, again, the 0, the 2%, and the 5%, and community service will speak to their rates.
So as you go into the community services area, you'll see Aquaplex as well as the Arena, Ball Diamonds, and Badlands Community Facility, including the multi-passes. We're recommending a 2% increase in all those areas to reflect what was already shown in the budget deliberations to this point. We have taken a brief snapshot of some of the other facilities that we normally compare ourselves to, and that would be in line with what they're offering. We still want to focus on our emphasis on cost recovery, and allowing a 2% increase we thought was a reasonable step forward in getting to that at the end of the day.
I'll maybe speak to the fact that some of those rates only apply come July 1st.
Sure, yeah. If you go into the arena space as an example, and group rates as we apply them in the Aquaplex, normally we don't make those rates apply until the 1st of July. And the reason we do that is in part because we do have shutdowns of the arena generally between the May to end of June period, as well that we don't do an install of ice until the last part of July, and that then kicks in for the new season of hockey schools, as well as some of the other camps that we run throughout August and going into September. It allows for groups like the schools, as well as Campions and Edutaurs from the Royal Tyrrell Museum, to also plan for the future when we set them in that fashion, because their fiscal year runs typically from September to the end of, well, I think it might be August 1st to the end of July, if I'm not mistaken. But at least gives them an opportunity to plan ahead. It doesn't catch them in a position where they can't recover some of the costs that they would normally be planning for in their future classes and groups.
Jay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Paul, I'm really pleased to see. I mean, I know that 2% is such a nominal increase in so many areas, but I think Council, draw your attention to the public swimming drop-in. You'll see that there's actually no fee increase for. We're still being free for people at 5 and under. There's no fee increase for youth, and there's no fee increase at the senior level. It's only adults who would be asked to pay 25 cents more than they were paying before. And when you see that ice rental rate changed to $84.50 from $82, it's important to see that when you're talking about that spread over, the membership of minor hockey or the membership of CanSkate, we're talking about pennies on registration costs, even spread over the entire year. So keeping those increases to 2% is a miracle. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. How does our pool rates compare to other pools such as Three Hills that have a water slide and other?
There are definitely other facilities out there that you can find. I mean, we can go do an extensive search and we can find other facilities that are cheaper. Certainly, our strategy has been to cost recover. We don't have advantages like the Prairie Bible Institute that offset some of their costs. They certainly have that advantage. We try and be as competitive as we possibly can and run an efficient operation, and that's just how we have to look at it. No, I'm not going to say that we also benefit, I would add, from the amount of tourists that use our facilities throughout that season as well.
So the comparison is $1, $2, $5. What are we in the middle, below?
I would need to specifically refer to Three Hills to get that information.
The only reason I ask that is because quite a few families do go to Three Hills and other areas to swim because of the water slide that we have. Children under 8 or a certain height can't use. That is why I asked that question.
Yeah, we do the best that we can to be the most universally usable facility in the area, and there's lots of people that come to our facilities because they enjoy our facilities as well.
We are going to continue the discount that we offer for when people of need apply. Fee assist, that's the one. I keep forgetting that name.
It's part of a policy and we're not proposing any change.
Yeah.
One point of information, though, would be that we did have that specifically identified for victims of the Fort McMurray fires. And at this point, we haven't made any adjustments to that. We're just carrying forward with providing that relief.
So is that like a percentage? Or
at this point, we haven't capped anything to do with the fee assistance program. There are other municipalities that do have a cap, and once they reach a certain budget value, they actually cap it and they lock the door on making that fee assistance program available.
But our policy right now, is it not, is that the rebate is up to 50% off the price of retail?
That's correct. Yeah.
And that's going to continue?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Just a comment. Drop-in fees, BCF drop-in fees. I do find those expensive, and I it's not a lot of money, but I don't want to support an increase. I think drop-in fees are to encourage use, and I took my 2 grandkids down there, and it was just about $14 for 40 minutes, which was just too much, and it's not encouraging youth. I'd actually like to see a decrease instead of an increase, only in that area, but I do have a concern with that.
I'd just like to shadow that. I know myself, I don't have a year-round membership, but when I was dropping in at $9 a piece, it definitely limited as to what I was able to budget for in the months ahead when it came to my own health. So, but yeah, and I've got other acquaintances that brought their children, and they said, Lisa, what are you guys doing? We want to use a facility. We thought this was for the community. Can we not in some way make it a little bit more cost-friendly? So I would...
Sorry, if I could just respond to that. One of the things that we do is on a regular basis make time available for indoor play, and with the recent cold weather that we've had, certainly there's a good lineup of participation for that program. An option that you might want to consider is to set aside certain times where we can make that available for families on a more regular basis.
I guess one of the ideas of the drop-in fee as well is to encourage people to get a membership, because I find the membership, incentive of getting a longer and longer membership is incredibly cost efficient. We're paying hardly anything at all if you get like a year membership or even a 6-month membership. So
yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And the way that we structure our memberships from the beginning in 2013 was to inspire more people to take longer commitments to the facilities, and that's certainly reflected in our 1, 3, 6 month and yearly memberships as well, which we've managed to maintain over time quite well. There has been some tapering off, I guess you could say, due to the current economic situation. But at the end of the day, that is what we're trying to do. There's certainly opportunities for us to look into more along the lines of what we do at the Aquaplex with toonie swims and other special days like that. And we'd certainly be happy to look into those for you in the future.
That would work. Tara?
Are they able to make payment plans on their membership, or do they have to pay the whole fee upfront?
One of the most popular things that we have going is our payment programs that we have available. It does take away from that huge lump sum payment that people might have to face otherwise. It's very popular, absolutely.
I can honestly tell you that every month my credit card is billed for my family and I not to swim and not to exercise.
All right. I guess, yeah, if you're going to look at the toonie for use and that as a drop-in?
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. I think it's an area where, our bottom line for our facilities is not just about the dollar, it's about the use, it's about the amount of participation that we get from the public. And certainly there's ways that we can think about it to expand that use and make it more accessible, which ultimately becomes a good tool for us, for people later on who might think that they do want to get a membership because they're using the facility.
It gives you the exposure.
Yeah, exactly. So we're happy to look into that. And then what I wanted to do next is just move into the facility rental rates that you'll see. I think it's on another one called page 1. Just kidding. Page 1. So again, we're just proposing a 2% increase there. One of the great things that we've seen this year in this year's budget is we've been able to do a better job of recording the in-kind support that we offer to not-for-profit groups. So you see a good deal of that was picked up in this year's budget process. Still, again, we are, when we said 4 years ago how we wanted to perform with this facility, we are performing on trend with where we wanted to go, and in some cases we're overperforming when it comes to our rental spaces. We're always looking for new ways to market ourselves and bring in different events, but generally, again, we just say 2% is the way to go, and then we'll be able to apply that to the overall cost of operation as we kind of move things forward.
Forgive me, Paul, before we're in competition in our own community, how do you feel about our rates competitively against the other banquet facility available in town?
Well, actually, I mean, you've got the golf course, you've got the Cretaceous Conference Center, you've got new competition in Munson in their new hall.
Yeah.
When people talk to me about this, I say, look where we were 10 years ago, Drumheller, and look where we are today. We have an abundance of excellent banquet facilities that we can use at our disposal. In addition to that, we've got community halls that take advantage and are able to host different sizes of events. At the end of the day, people will shop around and we refer them and they refer back to us depending on what kind of event they're going to have. The Cretaceous, I mean, we certainly work with them. We work with anyone who inquires, and we refer as much business as possible to businesses in Drumheller that support banquets, special events, and so on. Rate-wise, I think we're probably a little bit higher, but we also know that people see our facility as having a very high quality effect on the events that they host. The potential's there, the capacity's there, the service is there, and we do a good job with it. So we do get lots of attention on that basis, but we certainly we share those when people inquire. We share that with others that we're always in communication with.
Thank you.
Okay, the next fee schedule is bulk rates for the wastewater dumping. We talked quite a bit about this last year. Last year, we realized it had been some time since the rate had increased, and so you'll see the beige target rate. That was what was outlined last year, and it's the exact same schedule, just showing the increases that are required to try to reach our target by May 18th. So it'll be another increase of 10% January, and 5% for out of town customers. And then again, another change in May, and again, another change in October. And I believe we phased it in particularly to lessen the impact to the large users that dump the campgrounds and whatnot. So nothing changed there from our proposal last year.
It was just one of those things that had slipped through the cracks where landfill was collecting the fees for us that we didn't let them know that they were supposed to be increased. So we're trying to make up the difference now.
The business license bylaw schedule is Schedule A from the 2015 fee schedule, and there was no recommendation for change there. Moving on.
So you're recommending no increases
No
to business
increase to
licenses?
business
Thank you.
license.
Just, go ahead. Well, just while we're on it, I've actually heard from some people talking about that. Is there a possibility to actually talk with neighboring communities to have a regional license at some point? That if, you know, we do have companies that come in that will work in Three Hills or will work in Starland or whatnot, if indeed they charge business licenses in those areas.
We do have arrangements with Munson and I believe Carbon, and we've offered that up to other municipalities. A number of them just haven't chosen to take advantage of it, but certainly the ability to do that. The only difference would be they got a license to work in Drumheller, then they work in Munson. The only thing they have to pay is the difference between the two rates. That's the way it's structured right now in the bylaw. So the ability to do that is currently available.
Now, my memory might be deceiving me, but were we not at one point in time going to have another review in regards to those business license fees? Well, I meant in comparison to other communities. Did we not have? I'm pretty sure we. At one
We
point
provided a review about it a year ago. I think there was an adjustment made based on Pat's recommendation that we made halfway through the year for the buskers.
I think we were going to wait and see how the micro business license went for a couple years, because that was filling that gap in the business licensing fee, and then we were going to reassess it after that.
Either way, it's nice to see no increase. I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Just wondering, when we have this farmers market, and we have people coming in from out of town and setting up a table at the farmers market, are they required to have a business license? If not, why not?
The way that the business license bylaw works, and we identified market organizers for a public market, and what we did is say that there is a fee to organize a public market, and that it is handled in more of a special events fashion. And by doing that, what we did is we then put the responsibility on the market organizers to take care of the administration of the vendors that would participate in those markets. One of the reasons we did that was, well, first of all, there's now 4 markets in Drumheller. That, I think, was a key factor in establishing more of those markets and making those opportunities available. As well, it just removed some of the barriers, honestly. It was difficult for us to enforce typically events that are taking place weekends, evenings, and that kind of thing. But that put them in a position where they had to take that responsibility and be accountable for the vendors that were going to be there. there's many other kind of wrinkles there as well, because we can go into the Alberta Farmers Market, and if someone says that they're growing their own produce under the Agricultural Act, they don't have to pay a fee. So it was perceived then that these guys may have an advantage based on what they produce compared to anybody else that wanted to come to Drumheller, and in fact generate more economic activity by having another market that created traffic and interest in other things that were happening, in particular in downtown. But there's also markets that take place at the Co-op Mall as well from time to time at the Badlands Community Facility. So certainly, I mean, that could be something that council could consider. Our view was that by taking this approach, we were going to have more of a free enterprise system that wasn't going to regulate it in the same way that it could be regulated, and just that would encourage more participation and hopefully have more economic spin-off as a result.
So if there's a farmer's market, it's considered a special event. Is that the license they get? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, the farmers market and any other public market that we have, they do apply through the special events process, and then they give us the name, the dates that they would be hosting that market and the locations, and then we coordinate any logistics from our end that we think are necessary to complement that event. I think on the whole, it's been good because we've seen that growth and interest in doing that kind of an activity. At the same time, we've also taken opportunities like Canada Day, where we've invited food trucks to participate, and those have been very well received. And there's a fee that's paid to us for those food trucks to locate in the last couple of years anyways in the Badlands Community Facility parking lot, but previously at the feet of the world's largest dinosaur. We just felt that this would enhance the event, and the public seemed to appreciate that there was more food service opportunities available on site.
Okay, the next fee schedule is for cemetery. And again, the proposal is 2%. With the exception of the highlighted items, they average around between 5.2 and 5.5%, those highlighted in yellow. And Daryl, you can speak to that, please.
There's two costs that we increased greater than 2%, and that's the cost to open and close on the weekends. Just they weren't covering the cost of actually providing the service to us. So with our increases in fees, and then the columbarium niche, we increased that. The cost of those or the cost of that has gone up a little bit. And if we want to do a cost recovery basis on it and plan for the next one. So our whole goal is to make sure look at the rate and make it competitive with other communities, but also at the same time make sure that we're cost competitive with our own with doing the work ourselves. So.
The next one was summer fun. So summer fun and flex days, we did the fees being proposed is to be on a cost recovery basis, and then a 0% increase to the before and after school care fee. Paul.
Yeah, so if we go into those children's programs, Summer Fun and Flex Day at the BCF, the cost per week previously was about $125 per week. So if you break that down, you're talking about $25 per day per child, about $5 an hour, maybe a little bit more than that. That includes, a day of field trips and various other activities and crafts and such. Before and after school care, we continue with the program at Green Tree School. Our capacity there is up to 19 children, and typically we are fully subscribed to that. One of the reasons why we want to keep the costs where they're at currently And the policies that we use in order to manage that is so that we get a greater number of families that qualify for subsidy to access those services. So those who are full-time in that program and meet the economic criteria for attending the program will receive the subsidy from the provincial government, as we are a certified provider for that program. We did not meet our targets in 2016 as far as our revenues were concerned with summer fun, so then we'd like to take a step back and readjust those fees so they're more in line with recovering our costs. And some of those costs, by the way, we won't know until we get closer to the delivery dates that occur in July and August. So we don't want to really come out with a number at this point.
I would like to see the fee assistance program extended to summer fun and flex day.
If that takes a motion, I'll agree with that.
We have to rewrite our policies and bring that back if it's in the policy.
We're going to extend it as well to before and after school care then? Oh, okay. I would be in favor of what you're suggesting.
We can still proceed with this as we drop down to the policy. Take that as direction, bring it back as an Okay, move on.
Sorry, the next one then would be we're moving into safety codes area. So the first one that I can just briefly speak to again, development and compliance certificates, development permits. The proposed is a 2% increase on those services. And then following is the safety code permit fees.
I'll make some general comments to that, and Paul can add to it if required. We called for proposals, and council has approved, and Palace has approved the award of a contract to Superior for another 3 years with an opportunity to extend it for 2 additional years after that at an inflationary increase. What happened through this review is, and the call for proposals, is a number of adjustments were made, particularly in 2 areas, and the one related to safety codes for building, and we were getting a very good deal in that area, and obviously the low bidder in this case closed that gap. It provided us with about a 15% increase in that area. However, with what we proposed here, which is to go from a fee of $7 per $1,000 of construction value to $8, we don't entirely close the gap, but still are able to make a healthy return, a reasonably healthy return in that area, and cover off our overhead and allow for a little bit of profit, if you want to call it that. The area also in electrical, the schedule there didn't track very good with what was happening in other parts of the province, so Superior in their proposal had made some changes. But all in all, the bulk of the rates, for example, the increase was, if you have a $100 permit, they increased it by $10 to $110. All that we've done in our permit fees is simply allowed for that increase, so we maintain the same difference between what they charge and the revenue we maintain. But there are 2 adjustments in the building permit area, from $7 to $8, and although it sounds significant, it should be noted that we haven't had an increase in the fee since 2012. Palliser has reviewed these rates, so their board has approved them. The intention here is to move to these changed permit fees effective January 1st of next year. Paul, anything you want to add to that? Good.
Do we need a motion, Your Worship, to accept the fee schedule as
Yes,
presented?
we certainly do.
Also move.
Thank you. And a seconder? Lisa. Comments? All in favor?
Hang on.
Sorry?
It absolutely needs to be said again that with no increases on a great many schedules and keeping the increase to 2%, which is certainly inflationary only, that administration has worked very hard to try to keep costs as low as possible while still acknowledging we're facing increasing costs of our own to provide all these services. So I congratulate you on that effort, and the increases can only be referred to as nominal across the board. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? All in favor? It's carried. Those were the two items we had, so our meeting is adjourned.